Hello and welcome to episode 212 of Retro Encounter, RPGFan's weekly podcast of many topics. I'm Mike Sollosi, and we're here for an extremely off-the-cuff, spur-of-the-moment podcast that was basically planned 72 hours ago. But before we get into all of those details, let's introduce the rest of the panel, starting with Joe Padilla.
Howdy.
And Hilary Andreff.
Hi.
And Katherine Kortvely.
Whoop whoop!
Now, Kat, we had a bit of a dialogue Sunday afternoon. And this will be maybe 10 days or 11 days before we release this episode. But Sunday afternoon, we were hosting our Extra Life streams on the RPGFan Twitch channel. And you were streaming, I think, mostly EarthBound for 7 or 8 hours. Is that about right?
Yeah, it was 6.5 because I had minor...
We can round up, call it 7. Yeah, you earned your 7.
Give my credit.
Yeah, 6.5 plus a lunch break. Getting paid for 7. So you were streaming EarthBound for at least most of your 7-hour stream, and I was watching it for about 2 hours or so because I was all over the place on that Sunday. You were interacting with the audience. You were having a good time. I saw you go through the Diamond Mine and through part of Moonside and a little bit past there. I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was something like, "Oh, I love this game. I could talk about it all day," something like that. And then I responded in the chat, "Huh, that sounds like a podcast." And then you responded, "Let's effing do it. Yeah, let's podcast right now." And I said, "Okay, give me a couple days." And here we are. This episode is going to be officially called EarthBound Revisited because we did 2 episodes on EarthBound in 2017, but messing around on the Extra Life stream, I think, merited another look at this cult classic, really unique, weird game. Now, Hilary, your turn. You were on that 2017 podcast with me.
I was.
And I think it was my first time podcasting with you. I'd have to check the grand list to make sure, but that was a pretty good time, right?
You're right. Yeah, it was. It was my very first one. I'm pretty sure I'd only been on the site for a little under 6 months at that point, so I think I had to check and make sure it was okay for me to already be on a podcast even.
Sure, and but yeah, that was, I think, my first time speaking to you, Hilary, and that was a fun podcast to record because EarthBound is just so unique and weird and very special to a lot of people. In the 1990s, we didn't get every single Super Nintendo or Super Famicom RPG that came out, and the ones that did come out really became cult hits in places all over the world outside of Japan. So EarthBound is a standout RPG both because the selection was a little limited and because it's so unique and weird. I think it was the only RPG I played around that time that even was a facsimile of a modern world that wasn't strictly fantasy or sci-fi. Mm-hmm. And but it gets into some fantastical and science fiction elements anyway. But let's talk about our EarthBound personal histories a little bit, as I am wont to do on this podcast. Joe, what was your first exposure to EarthBound, and what's your overall feeling on it?
So, like many people, likely, my first experience with EarthBound was seeing Ness in Super Smash Bros. And I was like, "Oh, I really like this character's design." And
I feel ancient. Thank you.
Well, I mean, the first Smash Bros. Because he was in the first one, so that was like that was late 90s.
Yeah, that was 99, I think. Yeah.
So I really liked his design and everything, and I didn't know anything about EarthBound, and so this might make you feel ancient, but I played EarthBound earlier this year for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
As basically like every RPG that I will be talking about on Retro will be.
In other conversations, Joe, you have also told me about how recently you played certain RPGs in my childhood, so I was expecting to feel old that time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least the expectations there. So I finished it. So I finished it earlier this year, and absolutely loved it. Of the SNES games that I have played, this one is my favorite. I absolutely adore it.
That's a big honor there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Kat, your turn. when did you first play EarthBound, and what's your overall feeling about it? When you did the stream on Sunday, which again was maybe 2 Sundays ago at the time of this posting, it was definitely not your first rodeo.
Oh, no. For myself, I probably played it when I was about 6. I was a very big tomboy when I was younger, so whatever my older brother did, I did as well. So he's kind of the one who got me to the gamer I am today. But my brother would always play the video games, and I would sit there and watch him. So when my brother had gone to Blockbuster, they actually had EarthBound with the box there. I still remember it to this day.
It was like a double-sized box with like a Starman and a rainbow around it.
They had that in the section for SNES games. And so when my brother had rented it, I pretty much just loved the characters. I loved the graphics, but I did not play games right away. I had the weird phobia that I did not like dying in games. So that's why I didn't jump onto it till probably I was about 7 or 8 or so then. And it was either, I still can't recall, if it was EarthBound was my first ever game I've completed, or if it was Lufia 2. I don't recall, but one of the two is a prized possession, and pretty much from where EarthBound is taking me, I can always plug it up, play it again, never gets old.
All right, and with apologies to Hilary, I think I'll go next, because this is getting me thinking about the first time I played EarthBound. My first RPG was Final Fantasy IV, but at the time I thought it was called Final Fantasy II. It was the North American Super Nintendo version, and I was sort of blown away by RPGs. Like, I mean, I had played a bunch of NES games by then, but this was not a run, jump, shoot, attack game like a Mario or a Mega Man. This was a game that had a big story focus and multiple characters and strategizing and all this stuff. So I was really fascinated by RPGs and was renting or borrowing or saving up for as many as I could manage when I was say in the age 8 to 12 range in the mid 90s. And so this, I don't know exactly when this would have been, probably in the 95, 96 range. One of my friends had a copy of EarthBound and knew I was getting into RPGs, and he's like, this is my favorite game of all time, and it's an RPG from Nintendo. You need to play it. So he lent it to me for a couple of months, and I got pretty far but didn't finish, but was really confused and a little bewildered by what this game was presenting. So I gave it back to him and said, I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep this. I don't want to steal this from you. But I was still, not maybe haunted is too strong a word, but I was definitely affected by what I had played at the tender age of probably 11. So I eventually did find my own copy. I think it was used at a Funko Land, and played it through to the end myself. And I even borrowed the guide that he had with his game, which was a really cute guide. It was like styled like a newspaper or a magazine, but like as if it was in the EarthBound universe. It was I think it might have come with his original copy of the game. I'm not 100% sure about that. And beat it for the first time somewhere in the range of 96, 97. And it's a really unique special RPG, and that I've beaten exactly 3 times. That first time on the Super Nintendo, then once when I was emulating every Super Nintendo and NES game known to man in the early 2000s, and then a third time for the podcast 2 years ago that Hilary and I spoke together on. So I think this is a really weird, cool, special game that is absolutely worth a whole podcast miniseries. So, Hilary, it's your turn now. When did you first play EarthBound, and how has it stuck with you over the years?
So my experience is kind of a mixture of yours and Kat's, honestly, because I had some early experiences with it. I think my friend and his older brother played some, too. So I saw most of the game that way when I was younger. And then I played it again for the podcast. And it really has stuck with me. Just noticing the differences between that first time I played it and the second time. I think I got some different things out of it because it is such a weird, unique game and there are so many layers to it. So I think I got some different things out of it, but it was no less interesting the second time.
One thing Kat mentioned when she was describing EarthBound was it had a very unusual art style. It almost looks like it's done in crayons or something, because it's a lot of like sort of bold lines and colors like a I don't know, like a comic strip, and it's not stylized anime or stylized fantasy art. One games writer that whose work I enjoy describes EarthBound as a combination between the Cthulhu mythos and the Charlie Brown and Snoopy Show, which is one simile that has really stuck with me over the years of following games journalism. But I think that there's something there. Like playing it as a child, you'll probably notice the bold colors and the setting that seems like modern America. You know, there's people driving cars and buses, and your weapons are baseball bats and frying pans. But then with Hilary's read, you notice all of the weird nuance and and some of the topics it addresses definitely more easily as an adult than as a child.
I think that part of it is the interactions you have with the enemies, because not all enemies are fierce, ferocious. They are actually rather cute and enjoyable, and some I can have nightmares from because of all the encounters and struggles the game can give you sometimes.
Yeah, the enemy encounters aren't, there's a monster and you have to defeat it a lot of the time. Sometimes it's an angry snake, and when you beat it, it becomes tame, and sometimes it's just a weird person that is acting a little crazy.
Yeah,
it's like
cranky ladies.
Yeah, cranky lady turned back to normal. The new age retro hippie chilled out. That kind of thing. These enemy encounters are weird. Joe, what was one element of EarthBound that stuck out to you early?
I think what stuck out to me would probably be it reminded me of the Cthulhu mythos. I also kind of felt Twin Peaks from it, the way its world was designed, and just when I'm playing games, there aren't a whole lot of them where I'm just like, it might merit a chuckle or something like that, like, that was funny. But I had some moments where I really, laughed pretty hard at some moments, like like when you interact with Orange Kid and Apple Kid.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which is just so funny, like the pencil eraser that just erases pencils.
Mm-hmm.
Or the phone that only receives calls. Or the trout flavored yogurt. Like it's so wonderfully off kilter. It has this sense of humor that I think just kind of imbues it with this complexity to it that I find so striking, and I think it makes the more kind of complex philosophical streams that it goes down even more important, because it already has these shades of comedy to it as well.
Yeah, and going back to the visual design and the comedy, even the most powerful monsters in the game, like dangerous aliens or giant dinosaurs or dragons, will seem crudely drawn, like they were a child. They have silly lined faces on the dinosaurs, like they're like a Wooper from Pokemon or something. The game is deliberately cartoony and childish, and goes into some rather sophisticated themes and dark places that seem out of place. Again, like Charlie Brown and Friends meets the Cthulhu mythos. But we were mentioning this before the podcast, and I think I mentioned it, Hilary, in the podcast 2 years ago. My favorite dumb joke in the whole game is when you're fighting 5 moles who are equal level and equal strength, but you have to defeat all 5 to in the diamond mine to make it safe for the miners. And each one of them firmly believes that it is the third strongest of the group. And it's like, why are you saying that? Why don't they all think they're the strongest? Or why don't they all think they're the weakest and have a inferiority complex? No, they're all deeply entrenched in their belief that they are the third strongest mole. And I don't know why it's so hilarious to me, but it absolutely is. Like they all want to be third strongest, and I found that hilarious 20 years ago and 2 years ago. Hilary or Kat, do you have a favorite joke or a favorite comedy moment in the game?
So I don't know if it's just me or something. So, when you go to Monotoli and you're taking that elevator up, usually when you talk to the operator, the female there, for some reason, I don't know why, but sometimes when you talk to her, she would give you sass, and Ness would just turn away or look another direction as you're going up. I don't know why. That always gets me. He doesn't do it sometimes, but when he does after her smart comment, I just smile like, oh my gosh.
I don't think that elevator operator is a job in North America the same way it is in Japan, because having like an office lady in a cute dress working the elevator for people is a thing over there somehow. In Persona 3, Elizabeth is a weird...
An attendant, right?
Yeah. She's a sort of an exaggerated parody of an elevator girl. And there was a... in some anime that I watched years ago... Oh, never mind, I remember. It was Bleach. There was a monster in Bleach that was parodizing an elevator operator and saying... the things they were supposed to do. So, yeah, EarthBound even takes Japanese elevator operators and takes it to an absurd degree.
I love it.
Hilary, do you have a joke or a comedic moment that is worth bringing up?
Some of the enemies, we've already kind of talked about that, but I never get tired of seeing like the mad ducks, the cute little UFOs.
The cute little UFOs will F you up over in the first time. Yeah, that's in Peaceful Rest Valley.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man.
They give you colds.
The beginning of I think the hardest part of EarthBound is the first 2 hours.
Oh, I was waiting for the topic to come up.
Yeah,
I was waiting for this.
I think we probably did talk about it 2 years ago, but because because it's just Ness and because his limited PP is a factor, like especially towards the end of your one party adventure before Paula joins, the Happy Village Peaceful Rest Valley era is pretty challenging. Like if you're not really careful. Or retreat at the right times, you can get murked in before you hit the 90-minute mark.
That's why I found it funny when you were talking about how you had the game for months. It made me think, did he get stuck?
I did get stuck at an extremely stupid part, and you'll laugh at me for this. I'm not sure if I talked about it 2 years ago, but there's a point right after Paula joins where you're supposed to give and you get a wad of cash from the dude that lives in the park.
Everdread.
Everdread. And you're supposed to give it to the guy at the theater to release the Runaway Five from their contract. And I didn't realize that when you give him the money and you're talking to him from the front, he says, let me take a closer look at that, or something like that. And what you're supposed to do is come over to the side and show it to him. And they do that so that they can have the cutscene with the Runaway Five all approaching the dude from the front. They just basically want you out of the way of the characters that are about to join, I think. I didn't figure that out at all and gave the game back to my friend.
Oh my goodness!
Oh no!
And he laughed.
So I leveled up Paula to 12 or something, just trying to find the way out of Peaceful Rest Valley with both characters in my party. And probably listen to that bus jam getting through not the Runaway 5 bus, the normal bus, trying to get through the ghost tunnel probably a dozen times.
You should mention that because I can see how that would be confusing, and that also brings up the point of I think one of the things that's really annoying about Peaceful Rest Valley is you have to go through it twice, once with just Ness, and then the second time Paula is probably lower level and likely to.
I think she starts at like level 1 or 5 or something. Like, and that teddy bear she gives you is a godsend because like Paula will die.
Yep. The other thing I wanted to mention, the tea and coffee moments with the Mr. Saturns. I love those. They definitely made me smile.
Yes.
I wonder if like coffee sends Ness and Co into that weird trance because coffee's for adults. One thing that I think persists in EarthBound a little bit, and if I'm completely insane and wrong about this, please tell me, is that I think a lot of the time it's children interacting with adults, and sort of you're from the perspective of 4 children, like everything that the adults say seems completely foreign or completely ridiculous. Like when you're in Summers and you go to that club and all of the adults are having meaningless, terrible conversations. That feels like being a kid at a dinner party at your house and not being 1% interested in anything the adults are saying.
Oh my gosh. That has the best line or at least my favorite line in the game, though.
They say so many absurd things in that sort of museum cafe or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. What's the line?
You talk to one guy and he goes, "You guys can't envision the final collapse of capitalism? Incredible!" I almost fell out of my seat laughing when I saw that, because like just everything about that, there's the scrolling of the lines with the little sound effects to it, and I thought it was hysterical.
And EarthBound, is not the biggest fan of capitalism, but oh boy, Mother 3, when you get to that thing, the whole thing feels like a critique of capitalism.
Yes, I've heard on the previous episode, Rob Fenner described it as a Marxist manifesto.
Maybe,
which is something that I'm. If anyone were to look at my bookshelf, I would be very interested in.
Yeah, I think it is worth talking a little bit about the creators around Mother, or one person in particular, Shigesato Itoi.
Yep.
He is a really interesting guy. He was a newspaper editor and website editor, a copywriter, and sort of essayist and columnist. He was basically a celebrity writer in Japan, whose career began in the late 70s or early 80s. And he reached out to Nintendo because he was, I think he like played a bass fishing game or something, and like thought it could be made better. And the Nintendo's reaction was like, "Why is a celebrity writer talking to us? But he's interested in game development, so let's have a meeting with him." And he basically ended up making 2 games on the NES for them, another bass fishing game, and Mother 1. Which was, basically an RPG, not much beyond a Dragon Quest clone, but with a lot of really interesting visual themes and ideas including, Americana images and UFOs and some real moments of darkness. Like Mother 1 is more interesting to read about than actually play. The less we talk about that, the better. But then the sequel, Mother 2, which we know as EarthBound, came about 5 years later, and that's a special game that resonated with a lot of people, which we've already made clear less than 30 minutes in. And about a decade later, finally made Mother 3 for the Game Boy Advance, and that game goes some places, but we don't need to go there. But anyway, it's a little weird because Itoi is a genuinely interesting writer who has a lot to say, and he also was a celebrity guest judge on one episode of Iron Chef, which makes him which puts him in the pantheon of great Japanese celebrities, as far as I'm concerned. He has a lot to say in these 3 narrative games that he made. I'm not counting his bass fishing game as being a critique of capitalism the same way Mother 3 is. He was willing to poke fun at himself. You can visit the APE headquarters in Forside, which was the company he founded just to make Mother 1 and 2.
Right.
And there's I think before the Diamond Mine segment, when you're going through the desert area, you can find a bunch of people around where the Diamond Mine is later in the game, and there's a bunch of reporters and news people there. Robert Fenner's told this story much more eloquently than I will now 2 years ago in the previous episodes, but that's Itoi making fun of himself because he was certain that he had found the location of a famous buried Japanese treasure, and brought a bunch of press and even a TV crew out to dig it up and have a big reveal to the world, but they found nothing, and he became a little bit of a laughingstock for that reason. So he was making fun of himself with some of the dialogue around that dig site in the desert.
I did not know that, but that is really interesting.
Yeah, so Itoi is this guy who does not come from game development, but is a renowned writer of many subjects, but wanted to tell his absurd semi-morality play through an RPG in the late 80s, early 90s, and EarthBound is the first good result of this, because again, Mother 1 sucks. But that he was able to poke fun at himself and tell these weird jokes and do things that no other game had done before in EarthBound is extremely interesting to me. And EarthBound has weirdly become part of Nintendo lore because it's a cult hit over multiple continents. I mean, look at the community at Starmen.net, which is a extremely dedicated group of fans. Holy crap!
They are wonderful.
And Ness was able to find his way into Super Smash Bros. In 1999. EarthBound has legs, even though it really didn't come from a regular video game path, and is and had a sort of a non-game developer as its chief writer. It's weird. But let's go back to actually talking about the game for a minute. I don't want to go through the plot of the game moment by moment, because we did that 2 years ago, and that's not what we're here for. Kat, when you played it recently on stream,
Yes.
Around how far did you get, and what part maybe surprised you the most, or gave you or was the most memorable to you?
Oh, this is gonna be great. Okay, so we had streamed EarthBound for Extra Life this past weekend. I was about to face the Kraken a second time because even though it's my favorite creature in the game, it kicked my ass because it did that one poisonous gas or something, and I lost 2 characters. One got poisoned or something, and it just sucked. But one of the, I guess, funny moments from the playthrough that we had streamed for RPGFan was I was going against one of Sanctuaries. I was going against Shroom. And during my battle, I had lost Paula and Jeff.
And I'm going to pause you for a second. The boss is not called Shroom. It's called Shroom!
Oh, I emphasize. I apologize.
There's at least 6 or 7 O's, and I think an exclamation point in the official text of the game.
Well, he also smells like mushrooms in the direction sniff here, too, so that is pretty unique. Anywho, so during the battle, just lost Paula and Jeff against Shroom, and I was just like, you know what, chat? Forget it. I'm just going to close my eyes, I'm going to smash A, and I smashed A so hard that when I heard that fading music, it shocked me because I had lost all my PP, he X'd out my PP, and I had 1 HP. That was an accomplishment of just closing my eyes and praying to the RNG gods that I can do.
You might have been helped by your guts a little bit because the guts stat affects how quickly you your HP scrolls down after you get hit, and sometimes randomly leaves you with 1.
Well, if my eyes are closed, I couldn't tell.
Yeah. So maybe you were saved by time, or maybe you were saved by guts, but you won regardless.
Yes, it was a great moment. Oh,
I wasn't around for that. I'm sad I missed that.
Steph plan on clipping that for RPG Fan, so you can see it.
She may already have, but that sounds crazy. And in Magicant you do fight more Krakens, so it all just comes back to. But I think that's the only shroom in the whole game.
Yeah, the Krakens are so adorable. I love them.
But that was a memorable boss encounter for you this time. Joe, do you have a favorite boss or enemy in the game that to your memory?
I don't know if you call it a boss or an enemy, but when Pooh is in Dalam and his ancestor is kind of psychically stealing his limbs and eyes and senses. Mm-hmm. I found that super interesting and also extremely terrifying.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I was confused and scared playing that as a preteen.
I thought it was a pretty fascinating, just dropping in like, oh, here's a meditation technique of self-erasure set to this kind of terrifying background and the slowly creeping music. I really like that, surprisingly. Yeah. I think that was a really fascinating moment, other than the final boss, which I'm sure we'll get to. You know what I actually think is one part of the game I think is low-key one of the scariest parts of the game that maybe won't be very high on other people's list. But when you're going through the haunted mall and being attacked by the furniture... it's a bit of a difficulty spike, and I think it took me by surprise a little bit because I had sort of coded into my head that the shopping areas were safe places, and then this one very quickly becomes unsafe. And maybe you haven't stayed at the hotel recently because you weren't expecting this kind of thing. So like a surprisingly dark, weird, challenging part of the game in an area that I thought was safe is like, I don't know if I would have been more shocked if I had been playing Diablo and then I suddenly got murdered in Tristram. It was that part of the game freaked me out a little bit. And when I replayed it a couple of years ago for the podcast, I had completely forgot about that part of the game and was dangerously close to dying before getting to the end segment. I think that's when we're first introduced to Moonside, or it's like right before the Moonside stuff happens.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Gosh, I'm trying to remember myself.
I don't have a table of contents in front of me, so I'm half remembering this.
I think despite all the terror in the game, though, and any of the nightmares we might have, I don't think any of them are probably as severe as a as Reggie Fils-Aimé's nightmares of fanboys screaming at him about Mother 3.
Yeah. I mean, localized Mother 3's outcry got so loud and annoying. I wasn't ever necessarily part of that outcry, but I was at least curious. Like, why don't they just freaking do it? Just to silence all of these annoying haters. Like, even if it would be an expensive project, I mean, this is really annoying. I would at least ask for a feasibility study on it or something.
It has to be at least out of some amount of spite at this point.
Yeah, maybe.
Like just a little bit, because it's just so funny at this point. Because he can't really go out and Reggie still can't really go out in public without someone asking him about it.
I think that Lucas, the main character of Mother 3, has literally been in 4 Super Smash Brothers games that got worldwide releases, and has not had his game get a worldwide release. Well, while almost the opposite happened for the Fire Emblem characters.
Yeah.
Because Fire Emblem was 6 games in when Super Smash Bros. Melee came out. And Marth is the main character of the first Fire Emblem game, and Roy is the main character of the 6th Fire Emblem game. And the interest in Fire Emblem just from those guys allegedly sparked enough interest in Nintendo to translate the 7th Fire Emblem game, which was a GBA game that was just localized as Fire Emblem and stars Roy's father, Eliwood. But never mind, we talked about Fire Emblem for over 2 hours about a month or a month and a half ago, so I'm Fire Emblemed out already in an EarthBound podcast. So back to EarthBound. Yeah, they should localize Mother 3. We
End
solved
of story.
Yeah, we solved the problem. Yep.
No more Mother 3.
Exactly. I say that, but we've thought about doing Mother 3 on the podcast before. We at least talked about it, but listeners, it is a possibility going forward, but we have no immediate plans about it. So, let's see, we were talking about funny things and scary things, and favorite boss encounters. Staying in Moonside a little bit, how about that cute, clumsy little robot?
Oh.
Why is something that looks so harmless one of the more challenging boss fights in the whole game? Why?
It's also, too, he's clumsy, so some of his attacks don't go through because he loses his bolts or can't shoot right. So
yeah, but sometimes he'll hit you with, like, a nuclear laser or something insane that nearly kills your whole team.
Yes.
And you don't even really beat him. I think you have to survive like 8 or 10 turns or something, and then Runaway 5 comes in and says, "Hey, look, there's an off switch," and then they turn him off.
Right. It's a huge element of luck involved with that one.
And speaking of the Runaway 5, like I guess Shigesato Itoi loves the Blues Brothers, so he just straight up put them in his game.
I mean, just the music in general. There are so many shout-outs.
Yeah, they're basically playing Sweet Home Chicago in their performance in Tucson. But and they even changed the color of one of their when it was localized for North America. They changed the color of one of their jackets because originally they were both in black suits and ties, but they realized that was maybe that was maybe a little bit too similar to the Blues Brothers, and they didn't want to get sued. So they changed one of them to a red suit instead of a black suit.
Nice.
Really kind of fun to go back to the game now that I'm older and kind of catch all the little musical samples and snippets that they use, because there's some like rags in the shops. And I think one of the cave themes samples the beginning of a Beatles song, like the first 3 or 4 notes.
I think there's a convenience store in Japan that plays a sort of a jaunty tune as you go through, and both the convenience stores in EarthBound and the convenience stores in Persona 2 have parody music of that exact song. Yeah, you know which song I mean, the that one is making fun of a Japanese convenience store chain.
It's like I've heard that song so much I can just hear it in my head, no music needed, and just have that tune going.
There's a lot of interesting musical choices in this game in general.
I think particularly about the battle one where it's just the upright bass with the bum 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 bum. It's like, why is this a battle theme?
Yeah, usually that's for when you're fighting humans, I think. You definitely fight that for when you fight Everdread, and in Winnet when you're fighting Police Chief Strong, I think.
Yes, it is.
Sounds right.
But yeah, it's a really strange musical choice. It's one of those. it's one of those battle themes that doesn't seem like it should be a battle theme. Like when you're like oh, I don't know. I've had SNK fighters on the brain since Terry Bogard was announced for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. But when you're playing like Real Bout Fatal Fury 2 or something, everyone has these normal, jaunty fighting game music with heavy bass because of the Neo Geo sound system. But when you fight Wolfgang Krauser, suddenly opera starts playing. So it's like, why are they doing this? They just sometimes a musical choice feels so incongruous it becomes more memorable than a really good theme that otherwise would feel normal.
That's, I think, one of the few battle musics that actually matched the character was Frankie. That only time you hear that battle music, and the whole like retro 60s vibe with him in his like jumpsuit, it totally suited his character. Like, I love that theme.
Yeah, I think Frankie is supposed to be kind of like the character Teddy in Mother 1, because he's also a greaser with sunglasses who fights with. But he's just a regular person that joins your party. In my favorite manga series of all time, One Piece, there's a character named Frankie who also builds giant robots, and has sunglasses and crazy hair. And I think that I think the writer of One Piece probably played EarthBound.
I never put those two together.
Their names,
something.
Yeah, their names are Frankie. They have a passing resemblance. The Frankie from One Piece actually looks even more like Teddy from Mother 1. And both Frankies create robots that they name after themselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The more we know, I love it.
Yeah, this is an influential game with unusual influences and unusual influencees. Because if I were to think of a single RPG that was one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, sensation of the entire 2010s, I would at least think about Undertale. And Undertale for its unusual choices and sort of absurdist tone, and it's sort of and the places it goes, I think that game is clearly influenced by EarthBound.
Definitely, it's like a kind of a mashup of EarthBound with some SMT gameplay,
and some rhythm game elements somehow.
Yeah.
Now, Kat, you might not know this, but before any of the three of you joined the site, I streamed for RPGFan. I think twice ever. When we did Extra Life in 2015, I played Undertale for the first time and beat it in one sitting.
Oh my god!
Oh,
yeah.
Wow!
It took me about 8 or 8.5 hours, and I think I had one break around the middle. And I ended up making about $200 for the DC hospital that Child's Play was supporting at that time.
That's awesome.
Oh, nice.
I did not know where the money came from. I think my friends gave about $40, but I had no idea where the rest happened. And I was worried that like it was a bunch of strangers and all the checks would bounce or something. But then a couple weeks later at Thanksgiving, I was speaking to some of my cousins, and they found my stream announcement on Facebook, and they messaged each other, and probably 3/4 of the $220 or whatever it was mostly came from my family who wanted who saw me playing video games for a DC hospital charity, and like, oh, okay, let's go and give Michael $30. That's awesome. Good for him. Kat, it all comes full circle. You streamed EarthBound in 2019, and EarthBound influenced Undertale. And going back in time 4 years, I streamed Undertale for Child's Play in 2015. That was a nice diversion. But EarthBound, Undertale, One Piece, goodness knows how many other RPGs and game creators. It's an influential game. Maybe the cutest musical choice, or my favorite musical choice in EarthBound, that is also one of the few things about Mother 1 that I like, is the unified song that you build as you play the game. In EarthBound, now of course all of you know this, but this is partially for my benefit, partially for the audience benefit. There are 8 locations called your sanctuary, and as part of the main quest, you have to find all 8. And it's not always obvious where to go. Like some of them are slightly off the path. Every time you visit a new sanctuary, you get a little, like maybe like 8 beats of a song. So like between 2 and 5 musical tones that are recorded in an item that you get early on called a sound stone. And whenever you use the Sound Stone, Ness holds the item to his head, and it plays all of the Your Sanctuary melodies chained together that you've obtained so far. And in Mother 1, there's a similar thing that as you play through the game, you learn little melodies, and they're less obvious than in the Your Sanctuaries. Like, one is you find a bird, and you write down what it was singing. And there's one part of the game where a robot is helping you navigate a difficult dungeon. And before the robot shuts off, it plays a melody that you remember. It's Mother 1's real weird. But visiting each sanctuary and collecting pieces of music to play as a full song by the end of the game is a really adorable gimmick. I think it's just called 8 Melodies in Mother 1. And in Mother 2, the song is slightly different, but it's it's called 8 Melodies in every single game, but it's just a little bit different in each game. So yeah, Your Sanctuary and the 8 Melodies, like, isn't that just really sweet?
It is, honestly. Like, I honestly didn't know the connection of the songs being the pretty much almost final song of the game. So I honestly did not know until this moment the more specialty that they are about.
And I think that I don't know exactly why the whole series is called Mother, but I think that part of it is in all 3 games the main character is just a kid with a mom and a dad, and is just trying to navigate a strange world where nothing makes sense. Mm-hmm. But the idea of thinking back to about your mom and just thinking about home sort of keeps you going. That's why homesickness is a stat in EarthBound that affects Ness sometimes. And talking to your mom and calling your dad are important parts of the game. And when you learn each of the melodies from the Your Sanctuary locations, Ness has an image of something from his childhood. Like one of them is his dog is a puppy. One of them is a baby with a red cap. So I think like the Sanctuary and these 8 melodies are sort of tying to memory and Ness, and how it all comes back to like Ness's family, and we're all part of Mother Earth kind of thing. Because there's an Earth motif or planet motif in the logo of Mother, and something that sort of hits home maybe towards the end of the game, because in each of these games you're ultimately saving the Earth from a threat that nobody really understands. So yeah, that was maybe an unexpected path to take from talking about the songs and locations from Mother 1 and 2. Do any of you guys have a specific part of the game we haven't talked about yet that you think we absolutely must get off of our chest before we end up closing shop in about 20 or 30 minutes?
For me, in terms of Your Sanctuary places, the pink cloud was really moving to me, where Ness...
under sort of in the caves underneath Dalaram, or Daralam. I'm probably saying it wrong. Is it just Dalam?
I think it's Dalam.
Dalam, right? Okay.
Yeah, it was really moving, where he says that he's thinking about his mother and what she's doing, and that was really moving to me. I was shedding a few tears during that point. And as I had previously mentioned, the final boss battle is probably something that we have to talk about.
Yeah.
We need to talk.
So Gigas is a alien threat from the future, and the characters in EarthBound have to travel forward in time to stop Gigas before he can destroy the past from the future. They have to turn into robots. It's its own thing. But the actual battle itself, Gigas is this like shapeless red and black embodiment of rage, and eventually you can't really damage him anymore, and have to just pray your way to victory. And the entire Earth praying alongside you is what's able to stop Gigas. But famously, Itoy said in an interview sometime that he has this horrible childhood memory of going to a movie theater and accidentally going into the wrong showing room. I don't remember what he thought he was seeing, but he ended up going to a movie that was a violent movie, and he accidentally witnessed a rape scene depicted on film, and that traumatized him. And that childhood trauma is where he got sort of just like the dark imagery and the angry sounds that Gigas terrifyingly broadcasts in his boss battle. So yeah, that was a dark thing to bring up in what otherwise looks like a happy game, right? Charlie Brown Snoopy Show, the RPG, of course.
I agree.
I think there was something. There's something with that interview where like he had thought that was what was occurring during the movie, and then he had looked at it years later, and it wasn't quite exactly as he described. Yeah, and it kind of played into his thoughts on the perceptions of childhood in this game, of kind of looking up at everything and things being a little bit hyper real, or things not being quite what they seem when you have the eyes of an adult versus a kid, whether that be kind of mystical, otherworldly, and a more positive thought, or the traumatizing terror of Gigas in it.
And some spoilers for Mother 1. The main character of that game is Ninten, who is a boy that basically looks exactly like Ness. And throughout the game, you find letters left by your grandfather, who was an eccentric person that was living up by himself on a hill. And I don't remember all of this, because I tried to play Mother 1 over a decade ago and did not finish. Basically, Ninten's grandfather finds a baby alien that was abandoned, and but eventually has to give up the alien, or it's taken from him by some shadowy government group or something, and it's implied that Gigas is the baby alien from Mother 1, who has just been transformed by abuse and trauma into a complete monster.
Oh God!
So it's again, Mother is much cooler to read about than it is to actually play. and there's interactions between Gigas and Ninten. It's a major character, and it's I think it's supposed to come as a shock to the player that the alien that knew your grandfather and was maybe helpful at times from Mother 1 becomes this twisted apparition in Mother 2. But again, I don't know exactly enough about Mother 1 to perfectly make the connection. And I didn't learn about Gigas being in Mother 1 until decades after I had played EarthBound. But yeah, it's a really weird place that it's it's a bit of an FF4 of a Final Fantasy IV moment where everyone praying for your success is what lets you win in the end. Spoilers from a game from 1991. It's such a weird place. A game that started out as you just trying to leave home and going on an adventure ends with you being transported into the future via robot and defeating some kind of horrible nightmare alien.
Mm-hmm.
And
damn.
I just thinking back right on that very last portion of the game, I remember being shocked by the transformation sequence too, like the process of the kids turning into robots.
It's kind of a body horror moment.
It is.
Yeah, God,
like drill sounds and stuff.
Yeah, it's giving me dentist office nightmares, thinking about that sound effect.
And the fact, and it's not made any better by who is doing it.
Oh yeah, Dr. Andonuts is not the most inspiring of scientific geniuses. Although he is working with Apple Kid and Mr. Saturn.
Right.
And also, shout out to Mr. Saturn, because it's a whole civilization of goofballs that look like they were drawn by a drunk toddler, and all of them are named Mr. Saturn, and it's very, very unclear which Mr. Saturn you're referring to at any moment.
My favorite is still Dr. Mr. Saturn.
You know what?
You stay for free.
I'm worried I made this exact joke 2 years ago, but I think my favorite Mr. Saturn is, wait for it, Mr. Saturn.
KO. They say differently, so they say KO.
Yeah, and they write, their dialogue is written differently too. Oh boy.
That's
Boing.
stuff. Oh my goodness, I love it.
Boing.
Speaking of things in EarthBound that make you really think it's through the lens of a child, the Mr. Saturn handwriting. It's big, it's very squiggly, it's harder to read.
I think one of the cool things of Earthbound too is a lot of the NPCs have their own little smart comment or their dialogue. They might use the same sprite, but they always have something to say. It's never the same message twice.
Okay, sometimes it's the same message twice if you talk to the same person over and over. But I do agree that the NPC side dialogue is often delightful in this game. Just the writing is so funny and absurd. And man, speaking of funny and absurd, and speaking of the final boss battle, which we were talking about a minute ago, you know what I think is maybe the single strangest journey in the entire game? I hope you see where I'm going with this.
Oh. Moonside?
No, I'm talking about Pokey.
Oh my, yeah. Oh, what though?
I mean, how about we're talking about how this game is sometimes just a child processing the world around them as something completely fantastical and absurd. How about one of the monsters you fight at the end of your journey is the most annoying child in the world, your next door neighbor. Like imagine you're a kid and your next door neighbor is just someone you despise, rightfully so in this case. And of course they're the monster at the end of the game. Pokey's
horribly warped form.
Yeah, Pokey's journey is every bit as crazy and dramatic as Ness's.
Oh, yeah.
He's an awful child who is always complaining about things, always taking credit for stuff he didn't do. Just the worst. Even his knock on the door is horrible. And he's the annoying kid next door at the beginning of the game. And then when you're going through Peaceful Rest Valley, he is a member... He rises to power in a dangerous cult. And then a little bit later, as you go through Fourside, he's somehow rising in the ranks of this like cabal organization that's taking over the local government. And then fast forward a little bit more, and he is in a spider mech suit and is working for the alien invasion intending to destroy the whole world.
Alongside Gygas.
He had no childhood. He grew up way too fast.
Yeah, I think maybe they were his name in English was intended to be Porky, but then they localized it as Pokey. Mm-hmm. Because he gets he shows up in Mother 3 and has even more pig-like features about him.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, in I only kind of know about that because in Smash Bros they have New Pork City.
Yes, which is a place in Mother 3. I think that's in Smash Brawl, right? Or maybe Smash 4.
I think it started in Brawl.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
I'm not the biggest Smash scholar, but I've been known to carry someone as DK and then just walk off the side of the stage.
Yeah. And another thing that's a little bit heartrending at the end of the game is the main thing he talks about, and that you kind of discover a little bit about his motivation for all of this,
right?
And all these attempts to like screw others over and gain power for himself, to keep himself safe.
Yeah, he's doing it completely out of self-presentation. I'm sorry. He does it completely out of self-preservation, and also I think out of a desire to be cooler than Ness.
There's that bit of it too.
Which I mean, coming from a horrible child is a sensible motivation, but doesn't exactly endear him to me anymore.
No, not at all.
I mean, for anyone who's played Mass Effect, he's basically Saren from the first game.
And does that make Gigas the Saren's ship from the first game?
Mm-hmm. That would make him Sovereign.
Sovereign, yeah, I couldn't remember the name. Right.
Yeah, same person, you know.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. Saren's a little bit handsomer than Pokey.
Saren's a snack.
For the uninitiated, Saren is an alien whose face is sort of insect-like and bird-like at the same time.
Yep, 50% bird, 50% insect, 100% hot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give me that flying bug type.
Oh god, this is not the time to talk about how much I like the Turians, but just it's just not in a weird way. Just
it is okay to have a crush of any flavor on Saren or Garrus. Zero judgment here.
You know, I just want to sit around, read books, and snipe things with Garrus Vicarian. But anyway,
okay, we have gone on so many tangents this episode
exactly.
That it feels like an 8th grade algebra class. So, What else is there left to discuss? We've talked about the remarkable journey of Pokey, the true main character of EarthBound. We've talked about We've talked about Mother 1. We've talked about Mother 1 and Mother 3, about sanctuaries, about music, about the visual style. How about Venus? She has some great musical numbers in her too, doesn't she?
Oh yes, I do. Venus is nice.
I think it's really cute if you watch the musical performances in this game, you'll see like the Runaway Five successful in Tucson, then struggling a little bit in Fourside. Then you'll see Venus sing in Fourside, and you can meet her mother in, I forget if she lives in Gwinnett or Tucson, but in a house in one of those cities. They mentioned that their daughter left to go to the big city to be a singer, and then later in the game you see the Runaway Five performing with Venus, and sort of skits happen in each of those performances, and most of them are optional. I think you only really need to see the Runaway Five twice, but there's like 5 different performances that you can watch in the different music venues in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see, what else is there? How about just the absurd items and equipment that you find?
I love a lot of Jeff's items, like the bottle rockets, the big bottle rocket, the multi-bottle rocket.
His weapons are
so
guns.
helpful,
He can fix items to become gadgets to use in battle, and he can he can build them. He can build them from broken equipment at night if his IQ is high enough.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that idea of finding junk and making it into something new and useful for him. It's a neat touch.
And depending on what he has, he's either like your strongest party member or your most useless. Because he can't use magic, but multi-bottle rockets are like the most damaging thing in the whole game.
Oh, it's the best thing to spend your money on. I don't care. Buy them all. Buy them all for Jeff.
Yeah, no, when they become available to buy, just like break the bank on multi-bottle rockets, then call your dad, get more money, and continue to buy multi-bottle rockets. But one other thing, I mentioned food a second ago, or at least I mentioned items, and made me think of food. You go to restaurants and grocery stores and convenience stores to get food items that are healing for you, but the different characters have different tastes and preferences with food, and I think some food will just poison Pooh if he, except for like rice and water.
Pretty much, yeah. Don't give him a soda. Don't give him a sandwich. It's not going to help him.
Yeah, I think he likes rice and water, and if you flavor something with miso, then he likes it. But otherwise, he's the pickiest character in the whole game. He can only equip 3 pieces of equipment and 1 sword. He can barely eat any food. And you can season food with like ketchup packets for extra bonuses, but that doesn't always work either.
Don't give Pooh hot sauce.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
I think putting ketchup on a burger like doubles the healing value of the burger for Ness or Paula or Jeff, but again, Pooh loses HP for most food in the game. Even though it's very rudimentary, like any kind of cooking system at all for a 1994 Super Nintendo RPG is maybe not a mind blow, but pretty damn impressive.
Now, you mentioned about Poe's equipment. Now, just a question
sure.
for all. Did anybody ever get the sword?
Nope.
I mentioned I played this game 3 times. I got the sword the second time, but I used the fast forward option liberally. I used save states liberally, and I completely cheesed my way to getting that sword, which I think is a 1 out of 200.
128.
It's a 1 out of 128 drop. So I cheesed my way to it, but I did have a save file with that sword on it at one point.
Oh, that's right. You, Kat, you said you got this when you're on the live stream. You had mentioned getting this before, right?
Yes, I got it in the same turns as Sollosi did within 2, but I had done it on an emulator, so technically it does not count since it wasn't on an official console in my eyes.
It's not. If it's not on the console and not in a SNES Classic, then it doesn't really count.
That's why I said I did it, but it's not official. I'll try again though.
I just threw an amendment your way, allowing a SNES Classic, because EarthBound is on the SNES Classic somehow in North America, but not Japan. Which I thought was a little crazy.
Yeah, that's how I played it.
I'm ready for it to come on the Switch. Just give it to me on the Switch. Life will be very great then.
I'm a little surprised it isn't on the Switch. Let me double check it, make sure I'm not completely backwards. No, that's correct. It was on the North American SNES Classic, but not the Japanese Super Famicom Classic, which seems strange.
I think the Super Famicom Classic got like a Fire Emblem game or something in.
It got Mystery of the Emblem, which is Fire Emblem 3.
Yeah, but we didn't get that in the
they
North
also
American one.
they also got the first Goemon game, which is really good, and they got a different version of Street Fighter 2 than we did, which is not that crazy because there's like 8 versions of Street Fighter 2 in the 90s.
Yep.
Now, one of the things we haven't discussed for EarthBound that's actually one of my favorite little concepts is I love the fact that if you played a game for too long, your dad calls and actually has
Right.
a little bit of a talk to you about, hey, son, I understand you're on a journey, but I think you might want to take a break.
You've been out there for a while now.
Yes, and you do have the option to say, no, Dad, I still want to go, or be like, yes, I do want to stop. And if you say yes, the game automatically has to force you to reset or turn it off to continue again. I think that is just such a cool concept many games probably do not have today.
And that is nice. And sometimes I think that is a feature in some Nintendo games where they
Illusion of Gaia had it.
yeah, they recommend you turn off the game because they're worried about your eyes or something. But one other thing about Ness's dad, you never actually meet Ness's dad. He's always calling you on the phone, and he's telling you how much money was put into the ATM recently. And I always thought that was hilarious. This goes back to maybe Shigesato Itoi not being the biggest fan of capitalism, where maybe Ness views his dad as nothing more than a voice and an ATM machine.
I mean, at the credit, you see Dad as a phone, so
Yeah,
that's how I always visualized it.
Yeah, like he only speaks to his dad on the phone, so he visualizes his dad as a phone that tells him how much money is in his bank account, and that's like I think maybe a critique of the Japanese salaryman that in order to provide for his family it has to work so hard that he's never able to see his family.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing.
Makes me think of, I don't know,
Yeah.
like The Office in Ikiru or something for you excuse me, Akira Kurosawa fans out there. Well, let's see, man. What have we avoided talking about? Hey, I got something. What was your favorite thing and your favorite food and the name of your dog? The most recent time you played. Because I think the default in the American version, your favorite food is steak and your favorite thing is ramen. But in Japan, your favorite thing is ramen and your favorite thing is love. So it's like PK love is the ultimate attack, and I think that's what it was. But what was your favorite foods and favorite things when you most recently played the game?
Well, my dog's name was Kitten. It's what I came
Sure,
up with.
makes sense.
Subversive.
That's a very Monsters Inc. move of you.
My favorite food, of course, is magic pudding, because you need that pudding when you go against your nightmare. It is an essential. And what was the third one?
Your favorite thing, what the rockin' or love spell is.
Oh, well, what I wanted to put wasn't appropriate, so I just put
What?
It wasn't RPG fan appropriate, we would say.
Oof.
Maybe
Now
I
I'm
should,
curious.
should I communicate?
It's only 6 letters, so...
I wonder how far we could podcast communicating just in
Your imagination can go wild.
The last time I played the game, I think I made my favorite food. I couldn't fit in mashed potatoes, and then I'm also not sure I could fit in potatoes.
Oh, you meant the food of the choices.
Yeah.
No,
At the beginning of the game, when you make a bunch of choices, you name your team and your dog, and you say your favorite food and your spell.
Scratch that. Pancakes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You were talking about magic pudding, which is a PP healing item near the end of the game.
Yeah,
I was confused for a second.
That's why I got confused too, but
All
no,
right.
pancake.
Yeah. Anyway, I put in mashers as my favorite food because I think that I didn't have enough characters to put in mashed potatoes, and my favorite thing I think I also put in mashers. So it was a very potato themed playthrough of the game, and I named my dog Rosie because that was the name of my dog at the time. Joe or Hilary, do you remember what you made any of those choices at the beginning, the last time you played? Which for Joe, I think was 2 months ago.
It was like 8 months ago. Okay.
Okay, all right, sure. Still single digit months we're talking here.
Well, so my favorite thing was music, so Psy music. My favorite food, I don't really remember.
So what's your actual favorite food? I accept that as a substitute.
I don't really have a favorite food. I don't. I'm just kind of like, I will inhale these calories so I can continue living.
All right. Joe's favorite food is Soylent Green.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
Oh my!
And I named the I think the default name of the dog was King. Is that right?
I think so. The dog is Boney in Mother 3, but I forget the default dog in Earthbound.
I think it was.
I just looked it up in the walkthrough. It is King.
Okay,
yep,
cool.
I just went with the default because I'm boring.
All right, Hilary, do you remember your favorite food, thing, or dog?
Yeah, so fun story, kind of. I'm doing kind of a tag team playthrough, actually, now. So that is my most recent playthrough.
Oh.
So I started it, and we named the characters after the members of the last EarthBound podcast. So necessarily, let's see, Paula's Kagan. I think Jeff is Fen for Fenner.
and I'm Prince Pooh. Did you name him Prince Sue or Moo or something?
Prince Sulu.
Prince Sulu. Got it. I'm Mr. Sulu. A nice. Yeah, I'm the George Takei of that podcast.
Oh
it was probably
my!
Solo, actually. Yes.
Oh my! Indeed.
Yeah, so that was cute.
So, what was the favorite thing, and what was the dog?
The favorite thing was just a string of music notes because I thought that was really cute. And the dog, I think King got me thinking like King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, so his name is Gawain because I thought that was a good dog name.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any Green Knights in Earthbound, but yeah, that is a good Arthurian legend name. Yeah, I think we haven't exactly exhausted everything to talk about in Earthbound, because this is a multi-layered game that goes weird places and has affected a lot of people, even represented in, your Undertales and One Pieces of the world today. But this is such a unique, special game. I think the only game I can really compare to it that's come since is either Mother 3 or games directly influenced by Earthbound. There's really very little else like it that isn't trying to emulate it. It set a standard for sort of RPG comedy and RPG absurdism, and creates some really incredible moments within the game that it's being streamed 25 years later after it came out. Is that right, Kat?
Yeah, I mean, I see people all the time doing anything from speedrun categories to casual. That Earthbound is on Twitch, so you can find someone somewhere playing it.
It's been a cult hit basically since it existed, and has been mainstream, or at least part of the mainstream Nintendo canon since Super Smash Bros. When Joe heard about it for the first time as a wee baby of 3 months old in 1999.
Okay,
I mean,
I'm not that young.
As far as I'm concerned, everyone under 30 in RPGFan is basically a baby, which is
not a fetus.
Which is very unfair of me. But still, I mean, perception is everything, right?
Fine.
It's an RPG I recommend for anybody. Any age, anyone who's a fan of RPGs, get Earthbound, try it out. It is a zany world of fun.
But maybe check online if you're not sure how to give that guy in Tucson his wad of money. Because otherwise that could, sour you on the game for a year if you're an 11-year-old boy in 1997.
Or if you get stuck waiting, 2-3 actual minutes for one of
3
the
minutes behind Grapefruit Falls.
Yeah, you have to stand in place for 3 minutes, and that's the password.
And you can't move the controller, you can't touch anything. It's pretty much your bathroom break.
I think as a child, that was the only time I was ever still for 3 minutes in my entire childhood. But okay, I think we're near the end of the episode. There's a lot to talk about with Earthbound. We might even do a 4th Earthbound episode somewhere down the line, and I'm sure
Sign me up.
Yeah, I'm sure Kat's already made the card and is already asking around and assembling the panel without me. But this is I've said these adjectives over and over this podcast. This is a unique, special, weird RPG that is worth playing for any fan of RPGs. But I think we're also near the end of the episode. So thank you, listeners, for joining us on this revisitation of EarthBound, and thank you, Joe, Kat, and Hilary, for joining me on this. Again, I haven't played this game since replaying it in 2017, but it's a game I still think about because there's so much to it, really.
I adore it no matter when I first played it when I was 7 to where I am today. It's a game I can always turn to and just relive all the good moments.
Yeah, it's also very meta, very ahead of its time, worth looking at multiple points.
So if I were to maybe try a Mother 3 podcast sometime in 2020, how interested would the three of you be?
Yep, yep.
I've never played it. Yeah, I've never played Mother 3.
I played it right when the translation came out in the EarthBound community.
I mean, I can just honestly emulate it so I can be like, oh, I played it, cool.
Oh yeah. We aren't keeping any secrets here. Like, if we were to play it for the podcast, that's how it would happen.
Okay, I'm sure I would get my hands on it then and give it a whirl.
We would be able to find it. I suggest you start with a website called google.com.
I've heard of that.
Right?
Them Googles.
Yeah, it's a secret internet trick.
Something I didn't know about Mother 3, though, I thought that the dragons were dinosaurs this whole time. I thought they were dinos. They're dragons.
Okay, I think we definitely all need to stop podcasting and go to bed.
We were talking about it, so.
All right, listeners, thank you for putting up with all of this for the past hour plus. We are RPG Fan's Retro Encounter. We're a podcast on RPGFan.com. RPGFan.com also has internet message boards, a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram page, a Discord server, Twitch streaming basically every night of the week with Kat as one of our regular streamers.
Yes.
And many, many things that you can find starting from the same origin, RPGFan.com. We also are only one of a family of podcasts. There's also Random Encounter, which focuses on randomness and current events and is hosted by Greg Delmage, and Rhythm Encounter, which is a music podcast that has been on hiatus for several months or probably a few years by now. And also the newest member of the RPG Fan podcast family is Phoenix Edge, a podcast hosted on YouTube by Robert Hatfield and his cadre of podcasters. They post weekly and mostly focus on current events. But my dear panelists, if listeners want to reach out to you directly, what is the best way for them to do so? Starting with you, Hilary.
So I am EP Fire on Discord, and that's a good way to reach me. Also, just Hilary@rpgfan.com.
Hilary co-writes a lot of small things on the website, like you take part in features often, and you're a regular podcast guest. But really, your main role is that you're one of the proofreaders and editors that makes all of our completely messy, ramshackle junkyards of paragraphs come out beautiful when we finally publish them.
That's not quite fair to you all, but yes, proofreading is my main task.
All right, and Joe, how can listeners find you?
So y'all can find me on social media from RPG Fans, Facebook and Twitter predominantly. But you can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Discord as @QueersForFears. So come at me with all of your analyses of Shigesato Itoi's work in EarthBound and Viva la Revolucion, you know.
And Joe, you're also one of our voices of social media. So if our listeners are interacting with RPG Fan on Facebook or Twitter, or probably not Instagram, because I think Steph rules Instagram with an iron fist. But very often you are the person they're interacting with directly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Myself, Nelson, Lucy. It'll be one of us three, and we're all one mind.
Oh my. Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I don't know how that trick works. I'll have to ask Steph. But Kat, how can listeners reach you directly should they choose to?
Well, the best way would be on Monday nights whenever I'm playing a game through RPGFan. But if you cannot tune into those for me live, you can always see me on Instagram /TheNerdyCat with 2 T's and a K.
All right, RPGFan on Twitch.tv on Monday nights.
Yes.
And we've mentioned several times in this podcast that you streamed EarthBound for Extra Life on what was that? Would that have
Saturday.
been Saturday, October 1st. I'm sorry, Saturday, November 1st. No, Saturday, November 2nd. Wow. I'm struggling with the months and days and numbers of the calendar.
We're all tired. Don't worry. Hang it in there.
Okay. Thank you, Kat. Now, listeners, if you want to reach the podcast directly, the best way to do so is to email retro@rpgfan.com. That goes to an email list that I check multiple times a week. And if you want to reach me directly, you can find me on Twitter as @TheRealMonsoon most of the time, @Evoker4Dogs other times, and on Discord, I am Monsoon Mike. So, woof. Well, I don't know. We still have a lot of topics left. I think I can go another hour on EarthBound. What do you three think?
Yep. Sign me up.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Right. You know what? Cancel that. Instead of 1 hour, we're going to go 0 hours. Thank you. Good night. Good luck. And fuzzy pickles.
Yes. Fuzzy pickles.
Fuzzy pickles.
Fuzzy pickles.